Hey everybody, Gepwin here, and I'm back with some Kerbal Space Program. I haven't played in a bit. I had a weird issue when I was updating my game from the last version to the new version that just came out, so I wasn't able to continue my save file. As such, I decided to just start a new one, start a new career mode, and this video is a little atypical, because instead of just focusing on one build or a couple of missions, I'm just speeding through all of the early missions. You know, getting a little further along, back up to kind of where I was, but I wanted to show you guys the process. So, first one, after a little debate, I decided to just do a really safe suborbital hop, just get some science in there. I put 2 boosters on just because I decided to mess around with a little bit of heat staging, but you know, really safe, probably one of the quickest little ways to get science near the beginning, just a really quick little suborbital hop. I know that you can get science just by sitting on the launch pad. I didn't want to do that. I think it's a little bit cheaty, so I wanted to just do a suborbital, go up, come down, and get my science. Worked pretty well. I did trigger my heat staging a little bit early, which is why I don't do heat staging that often. I didn't get much practice with it. Other than that, launch went perfectly, went straight up, got my science, and now we're going to come straight back down and land pretty close to the launch area, actually, except for this falling upside down thing, which I don't like. The rocket apparently is more aerodynamic upside down than it is falling. Well, I guess that's falling straight down, but I don't want it to turn around that way. Thankfully, the parachute straightens it out pretty nicely, and we can come in for a really nice soft landing here in a minute. So, can't remember. I think this one actually breaks a little bit. Really, as long as Jebediah survives, that's fine. We'll get our science, and we'll move on to the next set of missions. Yeah, nice explosion. So that got us a total of 19 science for that mission. Pretty well done, pretty nice, enough to move up to the next tier, and I believe 1 tier after that, or am I 1 off? No, I was 4 science off from the next tier, so we're gonna have to do another pretty simple mission. Pretty much the same design, add a little bit of science on there from the pods. I'll add a little bit of science in the pods. Want a controllable engine so that I can, you know, have a little more control over where it goes, not just go straight up and straight down. Get an engine that I can turn on and off, which I thought was a pretty novel idea, you know, not just boosters. And since I've unlocked decouplers, put on a few of those, I can actually stage the thing properly this time. And we'll add some science onto the module. I was gonna just put it on the fuel tank, but I was afraid that might explode since you have to bring it back, especially since transmitting science has been nerfed so much. Wanted to make sure that I was able to bring it back in one piece, and that's why I've been sticking it on the top, on the command pod there instead of on the fuel. So this should be a pretty easy launch. It's only 3 stages. I'm kinda hoping that this one will go to orbit. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it. Might not have brought quite enough fuel. But with these boosters, it's a pretty easy launch, get up to some pretty good speed on the liftoff there, and the separatrons just make the staging so much simpler than the heat staging. I'm so much better. I definitely don't have enough fuel to make orbit, but that's okay. We'll send it out as far as we can, hopefully get some data from a new biome on our way out, and those 3 goo containers should give us some better information on what's going on. So I really, ran out of fuel, but I did get a pretty good hop, still suborbital, so not going to get quite as much science as I would have gotten, but really still good, landed in a new biome. Oh, and I did forget to mention, I just saw a little keythane thing up there. I'm playing this mode with 2 mods on. I have Keythane, which won't come into play until much later. Assuming it's still working. I actually didn't test to see if it's still working, so we might get to a mining site and discover that the mod is not functional. But that doesn't matter as much. The thing that I really wanted to say that I am using is MechJeb. Now, I know a lot of people say that Mechanical Jeb is cheating, and I kinda do agree, but I'm using it for 2 reasons. One, I enjoy planning out missions and building the ships more than I enjoy trying to fiddle with the fine controls and getting them to land exactly where I want and all those things. So that's one reason. The other reason is I'm not super good at flying. So I wanted to actually be able to show you guys complicated missions, and MechJeb's going to help me do that. The final one is I find that MechJeb, especially when you're playing career mode, is incredibly fair the way they spaced it out. Because by the time you unlock something that MechJeb can do automatically, oh, and here I did not get as much data as I wanted because I landed on my door. So I was hoping Jebediah could do a little outing, collect some data from the new biome, but that didn't work out. But we did get enough to unlock the next tier and some better engines. So now I got some better engines and something that can, and some landing gear, and I definitely wanted those more fuel efficient engines for things. So to continue what I was saying, in this particular mode, in career mode, MechJeb is really fair because by the time you actually unlock the ability to use different things in MechJeb, because you don't just unlock MechJeb and then you can automatically fly your rockets, you have to actually unlock the ability to do automated things. So by the time you unlock the ability to automatically go up to a certain height, or automatically lift off, or automatically go to orbit, this is something you've already done 100 times. So maybe you're tired of it by then. And I think that is a really, really fair way of doing it, so that's why I'm using MechJeb. Yell at me in the comments if you want to. So this is a pretty standard launch. I just added some side boosters on there, give me a little bit extra fuel on the edges, and make orbit with this particular, to try to make orbit with this particular design. Not that much different than the last one. I just kind of strapped some extra tanks onto the side and also a few more command modules just to make sure that I had enough control to keep the thing straight as I was taking off, since I haven't unlocked the usable rudders yet. Rudders, what am I talking about? This is, I haven't unlocked movable control surfaces. I just have the fins that keep it straight. So really wanted some extra control from the command pods. I didn't use them for science. I just used them for their reaction wheel capabilities and extra battery life. So this one I actually had enough fuel to really make orbit this time, which was great. And finally made orbit, but then I discovered that I've tapped out all the science in orbit, which was odd. I thought that was a bit odd. I thought that being in orbit around Kerbin would give me different results than just my suborbital hops, but apparently not. Apparently it's more to do with altitude, so instead I'm just going to take the readings from my goo canisters and use those. It's disappointing that I don't get a crew report. I can get an EVA, and I'll be able to get another EVA and a crew report and a sample when I land. So all in all, it should give me a nice amount of science. It's just kind of disappointing that reaching orbit doesn't give you different results. So since I still have enough fuel, I'm choosing where to put down. Well, not exactly. I'm putting down over a continent so that I don't land in the water. And I can hopefully explore one of Kerbin's mini biomes. The biome exploration is going to take just take a little while. I don't know if I'm going to purposely try to go to every single one. I might when I unlock some more aviation and get a space plane going. And not really a space plane, that'd be more of a normal plane. But for now I'm just going to collect science wherever I happen to land. Try to make an effort to land in different biomes along the way, hopefully maximize some of my science that way. So on the way down, just using the internal view, and landed. I switch to internal view a lot when I'm landing because watching landings is kind of boring. That's why I speed them up so much. I do apologize if people think this might be going by a little bit fast. Again, I'm just trying to skip through the early missions. 'Cause, the first few missions are the same for everybody. They're kind of dull unless you're doing something very amazing and complicated. So we finally got enough science to unlock a few more things and try to make a nice little landing craft. I really don't know why I decided to make this a landing craft. I wasn't planning on going to the moon or anywhere else. I guess I just wanted to have one that wouldn't break when it came down. But I still put the goo containers up top just in case it does, or if it lands in the water. But really, I just like having a little lander. I don't like the splashdown or the. I think it's a little bit inefficient looking to land without half your ship. I know that's how they did things in the early days. This isn't the early days of rocketry. This is Kerbal Space Program, and we can do things how we like. So, I'm building out. I've decided to build out rather than up in most of these early designs because I don't have the struts. I find that struts are necessary for most things in this game if you want to build up, because otherwise it just wobbles way too much. And I believe that I remove those nose caps in a minute. Let's see. No, I might. First, let's just putting fins on every available surface. Yeah, again, I don't know why I made this a lander, because I'm planning on doing a lunar flyby, not an actual moon landing. But I guess the lander's nice, just in case we wind up with enough fuel that we can do a moon landing when we get there. So unlocked the giant boosters, as you can see. I really like using boosters in the beginning. I know it's probably not the most efficient way. They're meant to boost, not to bring you up entirely. I kind of enjoy them. I don't know. I think it's just the juvenile watching things explode more than anything else. So flight goes up pretty much without a hitch on this one. I did do some editing. I'll be honest. I took out some of the things that didn't work just to skip through a little more. I'll keep them in better later. It goes up pretty much without a hitch, and I do keep enough fuel that I can pretty easily reach orbit. I was getting a little bit worried about my moon flyby, but I still have a couple of full stages, and that smaller engine is pretty efficient for once you've left the atmosphere. So just evening out the orbit. You know, the circularization burn, you've seen it a million times if you watch Kerbal Space Program. I've done it a million times. Everyone's done it a million times. I'm not good at it. I wind up with an incredibly non-circular orbit. But it's really enough. I just have to now find my exit, burn towards the moon after a lot of fiddling around, which I cut out. That was 20-something minutes of fiddling around. I'm kind of ashamed of it. But managed to get a free return trajectory, which means that I fly by the moon, and then without having to alter my trajectory or burn or do anything else, I get to come back to the planet. Really what I was hoping for, because I didn't know if I had enough fuel to make a moon flyby and too many corrections. So really had to be careful, make sure that I was getting a free return with my flyby, especially with the limited amount of fuel I was bringing with me. I did wind up with quite a lot of fuel left over. I probably could have made some more course corrections if I wanted to, but free return trajectory is pretty easy to do. So here's our first moon flyby. We made it pretty quickly. This is only our third mission? Yeah, third mission. Collecting all the science. I realized that I have not actually yet looked at the moon. And it was hard to find because there's this really cool kind of almost Kerbal eclipse going on. But I thought that was a really nice view that I'd share with you kind folks. So rest of the mission goes relatively smoothly. Just getting some high orbit science because I forgot on my way out. Then really nice landing. I was going to land in the water, so I decided to fire up and try to alter my trajectory, which seemed to really weird out the Kerbal system. You could see the trajectory path was kind of wobbling a lot there. But I did manage to get over land. I don't like landing in the water. No one likes landing in the water because the water is harder than the Earth. Don't ask me why. Ask Squad why. Especially since splashdown has traditionally been the easiest way to bring a spaceship back from space if you don't have a shuttle or some kind of lander. But really smooth landing, and Jeb gets to go for a little walk. Oh no, I didn't send Jeb on a walk? Well, that was silly. I could have got some more science from that biome. Still got quite a lot of science from that moon flyby. Enough to buy quite a few extra things and unlock Mech Jeb. This is the first time I actually unlocked Mech Jeb in this playthrough. I did not I did not unlock any of the automated functions yet. I simply unlocked MechJib, which will let me use the altitude information and delta V and all those things. So this time we're going to try to actually get to the moon. So I started from scratch with the rocket, especially since I unlocked so many extra things. Now, my real plan here is to build a nice wide lander, because I'm pretty bad at landing on the moon. Nice wide lander with a lot of different science on it. I unfortunately forgot until a little later that I unlocked the Science Pod Junior there, so I had to add that in, which unfortunately messed up the profile of my lander. I was going for a nice little squat wide lander and I wound up with a fairly tall one, but it's still wide enough to do the job. I brought some extra fuel both for the to widen out the base of the lander, but also just to make sure that I would have enough to get there and back, because I can transfer that fuel on the fly. It'd be much nicer if I had fuel lines unlocked. But for now I can manually do it if I run out of fuel on the way. Now, this really was just building out. I've decided to build out, like I said before. If I build up, it gets a lot too wobbly. This should keep it a little more stable. It does look pretty odd. Pretty odd, and then add some power just to make sure that we can make it to the moon and back, since I don't have solar panels unlocked. This was definitely a pain in the ass to stage. It took a lot of work. I messed it all up when I was putting it together. This should have auto-staged pretty well, but I copy and pasted some things in a weird way. But really, this is the lander that we are going to try to land on the moon. It looks a bit odd. I kind of liked the way that it wound up looking once it's in space. You'll see in a minute. It looks kind of like a sci-fi spacecraft more than anything else. And we finally unlocked some control surfaces and inline stabilizers and all those fun things, so no more just using extra command pods. So launch went pretty smoothly. It started wobbling. It worried me a little bit because it's wobbling and it's going up a little bit more slowly than I would like. I was really hoping that it would reach orbit a little more quickly, but those boosters did give it a nice speed boost in the beginning. And then I had enough engines on the thing to just blast into orbit. I'm not using MechJib to steer yet. Like I said, I haven't unlocked any of the steering. It makes you do the maneuvers yourself quite a lot before you can unlock any of the automation in career mode. But I'm just using MechJib over on the side to be able to see my orbit without having to use the map too much. I don't like staying too long on the map. It's less interesting. Still like to check my trajectory, but mostly from here on out I'm going to be flying more by instrumentation than anything else. That's what I like about MechJib so much. It does let you automate, but it also gives you a ton of info if you want to fly by yourself or learn by yourself. It's an excellent learning tool for beginners. So just skipping through a little bit. Yeah, you've seen me circularize, you've seen me jump up. We did have to skip to our smaller engines, but they did circularize pretty well after a while. That took longer than I expected. But thankfully those small engines are pretty fuel efficient. After a little more tinkering, we were able to get a pretty good moon encounter. Unfortunately, I couldn't manage a free return, just in case we missed, but I should have enough fuel to correct for that later on, especially since we're going for a landing. Now here we are firing towards the moon. See how it does look a little bit like more like a sci-fi spaceship than a traditional rocket. I don't think traditional rockets generally put their engines that far apart. So just finishing up the moon encounter here. Took longer than I'd like to admit. Dealing with those small engines does take a long time, but I was able to save enough fuel from that, thankfully. Now, the computer for some reason couldn't decide whether it wanted to give me the encounter there or not, so I decided to correct. Unfortunately, I didn't want to go straight for a moon landing, so I did have to circularize my orbit a little bit just to slow down. I don't think I would have had enough fuel to be able to slow down from that speed and land easily. Or I might have been able to, but I'm not good at the suicide burns, so I didn't want to risk it more than anything else. I did turn on Smart ASS. It wasn't used as much. I just wanted the option, just in case I really wanted to get to a node quickly or something. But for the most part, I kept Smart ASS off and just flew manually. Managed to circularize my orbit pretty quickly. Nothing really goes wrong at this stage. It's very difficult to mess this up other than running out of fuel. And I did bring extra fuel with me. I think the main thing that helped is that small engine just being pretty efficient for what it does. Now, decided to try to put down in this crater. Hopefully there's more flat bits inside the crater than on the rest of the moon. Ever since they added so many craters, the moon has been an incredibly difficult thing to land on. So transferring fuel just so I don't run out in my final approach. And finally going down, kill all my horizontal velocity and just come down really slowly on the vertical. This is probably the best landing I've ever done in this game. I'm usually pretty bad at landing, as anyone who watched any of my earlier Kerbal series can attest to that. This one I know I used a little more fuel than I should have, but really it was a pretty perfect landing. So just did all my science on the surface, and then we'll let Jeb go for a little stroll here. It's not really, you haven't really completed the mission unless you can plant a flag on the moon. And honestly, that's the only reason you should go to other celestial bodies, is to plant flags and take surface samples. I'm not good at the inspirational words, so yeah, we finally made it, and that's pretty much it. That's really all you need to say once you've made it to the moon. Like, I've finally made it to the moon. It's more of a screw you to other people than inspiring words. So got my surface sample, got my EVA report. Now this I kept in just because it's hilarious how bad I am at getting back in the spaceship. I think it took me, 7, 8 tries to finally do this. It's sad. It's sad, really. I considered cutting some of it out, but it's just so hilariously bad that, yeah, definitely cut it. I was actually getting worried. I wasn't sure how much fuel these packs came with after the update. Thankfully, it wasn't too much of a problem, and I was able to get back in. Just got to send the last bit of my fuel back into the main engine and take off pretty easily, almost immediately start circularizing my orbit. I am always a little bit confused by where to burn to get out of the atmosphere, not the atmosphere, which way to burn to break orbit and be closer to Kerbin. So I finally figured out a decent way to explain it to people. The moon in this scenario is orbiting to the right side of the screen. So by burning to the left side of the screen, even though I'm burning faster and faster relative to the moon, I'm actually slowing down my orbit relative to Kerbin. And that's kind of how you have to think about it. Your orbit with the body that you're leaving doesn't matter as much as your orbit relative to the body that you're trying to hit. So if anybody else is as confused by that as I am, I hope that maybe helped. I don't know if I explained it as well as I could have. Go ask Scott Manley if you want science. I'm not a scientist. I just play games. So I unfortunately did come down over the water. I was completely out of fuel by this point, so I just had to fall where I may. I was able to use my teeny little bit remaining to slow down enough that my parachutes weren't going to break, and thankfully I did bring enough chutes that even my landing gear stayed together, which I found quite surprising. So I've got almost 400 science now, which will let us unlock quite a lot for the next tier of things. Next set of videos won't be quite as sped up. Like I said, I was just trying to get everything together in this one, make sure I skipped all the early missions. So I really hope you enjoyed watching this. Stay tuned, I'm going to be more Kerbal Space Program and other games. Love this game, love what Squad's doing with it. I'm really excited I'm getting to play again. I really hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for bloopers. First episode I've done with bloopers. Enjoy that. I'm Kepwin, and I'll see you soon.